All right, so hairstyling. I know we're just finishing off that before we even get into it today here, but I personally struggled with controlling very simple hairstyles, and now you have quite extent. Do you run into the struggle as well?
You know what? I have some issues sometime with taming my hair because it's
Hmm,
naturally very curly, kind of can be frizzy at times in that. So maybe
yeah,
controlling my hair.
interesting. Yeah, I don't have. I like mine is like literally the opposite, probably of your hair. It's like short, straight, and we usually go for like a shorter haircut to just easy maintenance.
You got to
Keep
add some more
them-
bounce and volume.
You think so? Just add some curls in. What's that thing called when you get a curly?
Oh, a perm?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Do that, I guess. I've never had one before. That would look, I think it'd
Natural.
look weird.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that'd be strange.
Not want that either. No, no.
This one time though, I was at this theme party. We'll get back on track, I promise. There's I was at this theme party one time with yeah, like this whole group of folks, and I'd been hanging out with them basically the whole, I guess it was like week or weekend. We were on a trip, and some of the guys there were bald, and they came in wigs. It was like a 70s theme thing. And I genuinely didn't recognize this one guy. His name was Dave or whatever. And I like literally like turned over and I'm like, oh hey, welcome or whatever. There's this like big group of people kind of rolling in and stuff. And I had no idea because he looked so different in, just little like whatever glasses. And then but the wig itself looks so different on him. It just totally changed the look of him. Like completely. And like it was wild. I didn't know for like 15 minutes into like there. I'm like, who is that guy? And like someone's like, oh, it's Dave. I'm like, no.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it can totally change the look of someone, whether it be
Of
yeah,
people,
curly.
yeah. Hair really can change the aesthetic of a person and how they look.
Yeah, yeah. All right, well, outside of hair, we'll get into it. Using AI, ballet, modeling. I'm also a fellow model, not to the level that I think you've been at, but we'll do my own shout out there. So, um, yeah. But let's start off with how'd the journey start? You've been like traveling for a number of years, and now you're kind of coming back to home base, is the way we were talking about before.
Yeah.
So let's chat about the journey and how was that getting away, like moving away so young, I guess.
Yeah, I was born in Winnipeg, and I was dancing recreationally at a dance school when I was 3, and then when I was 11, I was scouted by the National Ballet of Canada, and they are based in Toronto, and that's when I moved away from home, and that's kind of what started the whole journey.
11 years old.
11 years old, yeah.
That like what were you when you were like scout recruited and to like go and do that? Were you what was the average age like?
In terms of like when dancers are usually scouted.
Yeah, yeah, that seems like young to me, but maybe everyone's like about that age and stuff. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, for sure. So typically it is 10, 11 years old, just so that the company and school and the director and the teachers can start to train you and mold you and make sure that you are efficient to dance professionally and you have the body and the talent and everything. So training does start very, very young.
Interesting. Because
Yeah.
that seems like my other comparison would have been um like the hockey side of things. Most
Mhm.
um more experience in that side of life. So it's only a reference for it, but it's like more like 15 years old. You're maybe moving away then, which you got a few more years and you're not an adult. You're obviously like, I mean, a lot of guys arguably aren't really growing up until like mid 20s. Our brains are not fully developed. Not making excuses, but it's just the reality of it. So you're moving away at like 15, maybe you are more mature at like 11 as a female athlete in that sense, getting into it, but it just seems like extra young. Like, I don't know how I would have done moving away. Um,
Yeah.
you know,
It was really hard. I was really, really homesick. And it just happened so naturally and like unexpected. Like I obviously
Mhm.
enjoyed performing and dancing, but I didn't even realize at that age that you could really even have a career in professional ballet. I didn't even, really know much about it until I was
Right.
thrown into the deep end there.
Yeah. Well, how did you overcome some of the being homesick so young? Like, what was that like for you? How did you manage that?
Yeah, that was really hard. I spoke to my parents. I tried to every day on the phone.
Yeah.
Um, I spent a lot of times with, I made really close connections with, the other dancers that I was dancing with and who I lived in residence with. I had house
Oh,
parents at the time as well, who I
nice.
grew close to. And I think just really focusing on like my ballet career and the roles I was taking on and everything like that, that kind of was where my focus was going. And of course, I missed my family in that, but I also was very happy dancing, and I was
Yeah.
doing so well. So that I think helped.
Yeah, I think I would too. What would your routine look like at that age? And like, or walk us through kind of like the evolution of that, maybe for, yeah, like you wake up dancing, and what else happens from there?
Yeah, I typically woke up around like 6:37, and then I had a breakfast with, everybody in the residence and in the cafeteria area. And then I had ballet from like 8:30 to noon. And then I did like 3 hours of school. And then I danced from like 4 to 8 at night. So every day, Monday through Friday. And then I danced on Saturday and Sunday typically too, especially if I had a performance coming up, I had to rehearse.
Dang. How often would you be performing instead, like outside of like training and practicing? What was that schedule like?
Performing when like every few months there was a performance coming up that we had
Okay.
to train and prep for and learn the choreography and everything like that. So every few months I would say there was a big show coming up.
And is this then because are you going to school while do or you probably are while doing this, which is almost kind of like a job at the
Yeah,
time?
yeah. So while I was with the
Yeah.
National Ballet School in Toronto, I was in residence training for ballet, and then the school was actually inside the ballet school. So I didn't go to like another school outside of that. It was all in the same building.
Hmm. How was
Yeah.
that juggling
How was that juggling?
school? Yeah, well, I guess they would know your schedule to be able to work with you in terms of like testing and stuff like that to some degree, right? I mean, I've seen other friends
No,
going, yeah.
yeah, that's why we didn't go to a public school or a school outside of the National Ballet. It was, they knew
Right.
our schedule, and it was just like close in proximity. And we made sure we obviously got all our credits and everything like that.
Very cool. I
Yeah.
guess gym class is kind of checked off though. Doing ballet, that's like an auto
Yeah.
before there.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And as you're evolving through this, at what point does it just become like, I mean, obviously like you graduate and then this kind of becomes like a job or like career for a period of time. And what did that transition look like for you?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. It just happens so naturally and like organically.
Yeah.
I think just with the more roles I was getting and with how much I was performing and the lead roles I was getting, I realized, okay, like I guess I'm pretty good at this. Like I'm doing well. And then the exposure, a lot of different directors wanted to bring me to their companies. And then I ended up in New York City, and um, yeah, and then I kind of realized, wow, I can make a living out of this. I'm doing well. So I would say it just kind of happened naturally and organically, but through a lot of hard work, perseverance, dedication, and all of that.
No, that's awesome. What about, okay, so and you mentioned like Toronto. I know that you mentioned that you lived in New York. Like, what was that move like? And that's, I mean, you go from like the biggest city in Canada to I don't know if it is the biggest city in the States, but it's got to be one of the top like three or five
Uh,
stateside there. And I mean, it's a lot different than Winnipeg. Um,
yeah.
what was that move like, and what was your favorite part of New York?
Oh goodness, New York is like second home to me. It's incredible. It's an amazing city. I'll be honest. At first, I moved there at 18, so I was very
Right?
young. I found it very overwhelming at first.
Yeah.
Kind of dirty at times, really loud, and I was like, "Oh goodness, I don't know if I can like handle this. Like, there's a lot going on here. There's rats running around. Like, I was like, oh
Okay, I was just gonna ask about that. This is an odd segue off. We'll come back on top, I promise. But I watched a documentary one time about this guy who was like literally a rat guy in New York, and he spoke about like how intelligent they are and how they
oh,
avoid traps and all this stuff. It was really, I don't know if you've seen this. It's a really silly documentary. I don't know if it's still out there, but someone wrote one, and I have not been yet, but I've heard things about these rats. So they're
oh,
everywhere.
they're everywhere, and they're
Kind of,
actually
yeah.
massive, and they're really scary, and they're like vicious. So, anyways, I mean, yes, we're kind of back
Sorry, we'll
here.
come back on. Yeah, we'll talk New York though for a sec. Okay, well,
Um,
outside of the rats there, how's the pizza scene? That's all I see online if I'm looking up like New York. Is it that in your face there? Is there lots of pizza?
in terms of the pizza, oh my goodness, the pizza is
Yeah.
so, it really is the best,
Oh God.
especially in Soho. And even like we have like dollar slice pizzas too in New York. So really it's only $1 a slice, and they're actually so
Yeah.
good. Open 24 hours. So pizza's available all the time.
Okay, I'm glad I asked that question. It's just something I see online skimming through like all the time. It actually would be a main reason I think for heading that way would be like, okay, we got to check out this pizza scene, but obviously it's in excess there. So yeah.
Oh yeah, no, the food also is another thing in New York. Like everywhere, the food is so good. All types of cuisines and cultures. Um,
Yeah.
but when I first moved there, it was really overwhelming. I was like, oh my gosh. But then I just grew to absolutely adore it and love it. I love the hustle and bustle there. Everybody works so hard.
Yeah.
So many go-getters there. Everybody has their dreams and they just go after it. And I also would say like so many talented people there, like a lot of really talented, hardworking people I met there. And just like I've made the most incredible best friends there. And obviously performing there was amazing too.
And when you're in New York, like I mean, you mentioned you went to like the national school in Toronto. Who were you like working with when you were in New York?
I was mainly with the Joffrey Ballet.
Okay.
So I danced with them for a little bit. I also danced with the Gelsey Kirkland Studio Company, and she was a very famous dancer back in the day. And then she created her own company in New York. I danced with the Broadway Dance Center, and I taught there as well. And then the Benjamin Brion's Ballet Company. So a variety of little companies in New York I performed throughout with.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Now for listener who has maybe not been there, not familiar with ballet, like how big of an audience are you performing in front of, and what is that experience like for you on the other side of that?
So I would say it could range. It depends on the theater you're performing at, or maybe you're performing at the school in one of the studios. I would say a few hundred to like a couple thousand, or lots of, yeah, tons of people. Like
Yeah.
especially in New York, the theaters I danced at like had just thousands and thousands of people in the theater. But it can range for sure. Yeah.
What do you find was like more, or maybe I don't know how you manage nerves ahead of time. I'm thinking of like my very limited experience in playing sports when I was younger, and you're on a bigger stage, whether it be like the hockey finals of that season or whatever, and it's kind of like you're stressing and you get kind of in hot, but it's the only comparison I got. You get bumped a couple times and like you shake the nerves. What's it like up on stage, and which is more intense? Is it like more of an intimate group is tougher to perform in, or is it like the size of the group that becomes like a little bit more the
Yeah.
psychology side of the sport?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I felt, to be honest, like I was always nervous before performance, no matter how, no matter
Yeah.
how much I felt prepared for it, no matter how much I practiced for it, no matter how much everybody was saying, oh, you're going to do an amazing job, Alexa. Like, even if I was just performing in front of a very intimate group where I would actually see their faces very close up versus the theater where it's usually blackout, so I can't see anybody really in the audience, you still feel their presence in that. So I honestly, like both times, all the time I was nervous. I'll be honest.
All the time. Nerves just well, I think that's good though. I think like I mean it means you care about
Mhm.
whatever it is that you're doing. That's how I used to like justify or any kind of like public speaking stuff. I treat that feels like the same feeling, that adrenaline rush of the attention being
Yeah.
directed your way. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I think yeah, exactly. I just think for me, like I'm a perfectionist and I, took my art very seriously. And
Yeah.
yeah, I think nerves are a good thing, right? So
Have you ever had to manage a slip up or fall?
I'll be honest, no, I never fell, but
Yeah.
sometimes I would get the choreography incorrect, or maybe I would do like the wrong arm or foot or, head placement. And then
Okay.
obviously have to be professional and keep my composure and keep dancing. But that definitely can kind of, throw you off a little bit. You just can't let it
Right.
throw you off too much to where like people are noticing.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, nerves of steel and managing through the limited one. But I always, it's not something that I've witnessed frequently, but I just know that you're literally dancing on your toes. Something I cannot do at all. That's so there's got to be running a little bit of a risk, but I guess it's one of those things that you practice so much, you train for so many years that for you it's like second nature. Walking on your toes kind of thing. If that's part of the moves where there could be an error, I guess so to
No,
say.
I mean,
And so
good point. I mean, I did like maybe I have like slipped here and there, but I haven't physically fallen on the stage. But
okay.
sometimes, like, yeah, things can go wrong even with like the music or the orchestra or
Right.
lighting can throw you off too. Sometimes that gets, That's incorrect. Sometimes the floor is a bit slippery or, things like that. So, but you have to be a professional and just work through it and just, smile and, keep your elegance and just keep going.
No, super cool. The only other thing that I've like witnessed recently would have been in London this last, I guess, like December, where I saw some like plays there, which people had pumped up so big that I was like, I don't know how good they're going to be, but whatever. And then I go there, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And that's what I was just thinking of when we were chatting here though, too, because I couldn't tell if anyone slipped up. It seemed like it was so dialed in that there was nothing that went wrong, but maybe on the other end, they were like critiquing, how they walked across the stage or something did kind of, go wrong. But as the other side of it, I don't think we ever would have noticed if anything was really off, unless you're maybe in it from your perspective, kind of thing, right? So
absolutely. I mean, after every performance, our directors and teachers and everybody would sit us down and let us know all the mistakes we made. So, like, there always was little things here and there, something so small, right? But we were always aware of like what went wrong. So
interesting. Okay, so like full on review, like film.
Film and just like they watched us live, right? When we performed, our directors, choreographers, and teachers, they would sit us down and say, okay, Alexa, fifth position was incorrect on this count of music, or your head was a bit to the right too much, or things like that. Yeah.
Well, really cool. I mean, you're at the top of the game, and that's kind of the way that I guess works. We talked about this in I got comparison with other sports. Golf. Turns out someone told me a stat the other day about professional golfers, they swing it was like something like 2,000 hits per club per day if they're training at like top level, which is crazy. I don't think my body would even be able to manage that. I'd be exhausted after like 100. So I can't believe that those, but you get so good, so many reps in ahead of time. That's probably very similar to training where you rarely see folks goof up because you've just done so many repetitions.
Oh no, exactly. It's just repetition, right? Like, I mean, I was just training every single day, always rehearsing. So.
Yeah. What did you do much training like outside of I'll say like studio? I might be goofing this up because I'm not an expert in your space. Please correct me. But like in studio, I'll say. But like outside of that, were you doing other cardio? I know that you're a runner now, but like, did you do other stuff to stay kind of top of game that way?
Yeah, no, we did actually. So that's really important and crucial when it comes to being a professional ballet dancer is the cross training aspect. So I did pool conditioning, so working out in the pool and laps and things like that. Speed work on the treadmill. Saw the chiropractor, physio, yoga, Pilates. Yeah, so really, really important to take care of the body and to cross train.
Awesome. How about in terms of like fueling? We've talked about this with some other guests on here in terms of like runners more so. And I mean, you're doing all these other activities. How do you stay properly fueled up and like nourished, I guess? And how much pizza is involved? but yeah, how do you properly fuel and diet for the sport of ballet, I guess we'll call it?
Yeah, you definitely have to fuel yourself with the amount of training and the stamina we need to be performing on all these stages. And, ballets are typically like, 3 to 4 hours, sometimes long. Lots of protein, you need your carbs and fat too, lots of water, coffee, electrolytes, snacking on, almonds and good nuts and things like that. So you obviously want to try to eat as healthy as you can because you just want to get the most fuel. So eating clean, I would say. And then obviously, like having ice cream all the time is totally fine. I had pizza sometimes and, I really enjoyed that. So nothing wrong with that, just not too much pizza.
Awesome. That's sound advice. I think that probably for anyone, including myself too, do like a good pizza. There's now, okay, ice cream wise, what's the favorite choice? What's the selection there?
Oh goodness, I have such a sweet tooth. It's like really bad, but like really good at the same time. I would say like cookie dough and Oreo are my top two, but I love all types.
Okay, that's good.
What about you?
Me, unfortunately, I have to self-admit, not much of an ice cream guy. Little lactose is the issue. It's not that I don't enjoy it. I've had some risky situations indulging in ice cream, as it were. So, but when I don't know, I guess I like mint. I actually did buy some local ice cream recently from just did a Google review on them. I forget what it's called. It's going to
Okay.
be bad on screen here. But anyways, it was a mix of like a banana chocolate chip and then like a chocolate one. So it's
Okay.
kind of hit and miss, but yeah, it seems to be okay. But it's not something I like seek out all the time there. But yeah, no, kind of a mixed thing of chocolates and other things. So
Yeah, no, yeah, I love my sweets for sure.
that's good. And what's now you kind of got now I don't know at what point this was. I know you sent like some background stuff in there, but you've kind of ventured into some other avenues of I'll say business and other kinds of dancing and modeling. I'll let you explain a little bit more about this, but where did your ballet career take you to some other avenues and experiences?
So I was dancing. Yeah, I've been a professional ballet dancer since 11, so a long time. And I was leaving New York, and I was going back to Toronto for a few years. And I no longer wanted to be in a ballet company. I really just wanted to progress and move on. I had danced my whole life and been in, a professional ballet school and company. So I moved to Toronto, and but actually, let me go backwards for a second. In New
Sure.
York, that's where I got discovered for modeling a little bit. So that's where that kind of started. And I did my first runway show for Eugenia Swimwear.
Cool.
I started modeling for some hair companies and things like that. And I always knew about.
We started talking about hair. That's why you knew so much about like the kind of issue I had with hair products. Sorry to jump in here.
Yeah.
Sorry,
No,
expert.
and it just kind of happened again, I would say organically and naturally. I had moved to Toronto. I wasn't in a professional ballet company anymore, but I still wanted to dance and perform and also see if I could model as well and start getting into commercials. And
Cool.
through networking and meeting people and essentially being an entrepreneur, I was in Toronto for about 5 years and I didn't have an agent. I just found work all by myself through my resume, my Instagram. Um, and I booked commercials and met people and did more runway work in that. And I also was still performing with my ballet and just opening up, I was performing for Toronto Film Festival and performing at the Hazelton Hotel and opening up fashion shows. And so I think New York really prepped me for Toronto in terms of networking and also giving me that confidence, to know that I could do well in
Yeah,
Toronto on my own and kind of establish myself as a model and professional ballet dancer and get work.
very cool. I love this tie-in to the entrepreneurial side. I mean, it's very common with a lot of our guests that we have on that there's some correlation between athletics and entrepreneurship.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I love that you just added that in there. But there's it's so neat to hear that you like representing yourself. You're out there with this confidence, and you're able to just like go have those meetings and yeah, and chat with folks about doing that. What was one of the more interesting like modeling experiences that you had?
I
There's
would
like
say,
products or different things. I don't know what that would look like, but yeah.
yeah, I did a lot of cool work. I think, oh goodness. I think walking Toronto Fashion Week was really cool. I worked for a really beautiful Indian designer named Anisha Kumar, and she just had beautiful wear. And I just remember that was just a beautiful moment in time for my modeling career, just because of her designs and how beautiful they were. And my mom flew down to see me, and it was just like such a nice moment. And I would say also when I kind of got involved in more so like the Bollywood Punjabi industry, and that
Yeah.
kind of happened naturally too. That was really cool.
Let's chat more about that.
Yeah,
How
so
did
I
that
was,
come? How did that start? Or that started with that modeling piece, and then it kind of
yeah,
trajectory that way.
so I had recently moved from New York to Toronto, and I met another fellow dancer, and she said, "There's this famous director who's looking for more dancers for this music video. I think you should come." And I said, "Oh, I don't know. Like, I've never really heard of this director before. Like Punjabi Bollywood. Like, what is this industry? Like, I had never been exposed or really had heard anything about it. I didn't realize how
Yeah.
big it was until I was actually immersed in it. And so
Okay.
I went to set, and I was a dancer, and then the director spoke to me after and said, I really love your look, and I love, all these things. You're going to be my lead model in the next music video. And I was like, okay. And I was like, so then I asked about payment, and we went through all of that, and then it kind of just took off from there. Like once that video went out, my Instagram following really grew too. A lot of famous Punjabi and Bollywood singers would reach out to me and book me, And so that's how that happened. And that's how I kind of got involved in the industry there.
Very cool. How long did you do that for?
I did that for 5 years.
Just casually 5 years. That's a pretty good shift. Most people don't stay at a job for 5. I think the average length of time that people stay at any job nowadays is like between like 2 and 4. Some of it not to their like whatever, but that's incredible. You're able to do that for that period of time. Very neat.
Yeah, it was a very cool time for me. I met a lot of really interesting directors and singers, and it was an industry that I'd never been exposed to before, or even like knew about. I knew about Hollywood, and I knew we had that here, but Bollywood and that I didn't know really anything about. So.
What could you share with someone that doesn't know much about that industry that you learned by doing work in it?
I think I just learned, they really emphasize like being expressive as a performer. They love that aspect, and they love when the models can actually dance as well too. So I think they really appreciated my professional dance background, specifically ballet. I also think like the music is really beautiful and kind of unique. But I would say I think in terms of like the dancers and the models being expressive, and that a lot of the directors too want input from who they hire, like the model and dancer. So I had a lot of one-on-one conversations with the director on, what the music video was about and how I felt about it, and if I wanted to have they asked me my input on certain scenes. And I also choreographed my own moves and movements and dance to some of these music videos that they're on YouTube and that. So that was really nice because I kind of brought my own individual, approach to it too.
That is very cool. That's especially that they're taking your input, incorporating it right into there. Or you have, quite a bit of say by the sounds of things to help. Yeah, with that, you're like co-director in a sort of a lot of that. So that must have been a really cool experience.
It was very cool. Yeah. No, that was I think a highlight for me for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a guest on earlier episode this season where they were talking about just like how much of their basically fingerprint they said that they kind of had on different things, and they were actually in the director's seat of different commercials and stuff. And it's interesting to hear how you were incorporated more so the other way. It sounds like this other gentleman I had on was more like he was, pulling the strings on everyone and really having full control of movement and stuff. Yeah, it's kind of interesting to hear it from the other perspective, and equally involved from a very high level of understanding of those experiences. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for everybody. I think that was my experience, but I definitely love the fact that I could bring my professional background to set and help with the choreography, with the dance movements and that. I think they trusted that. They trusted me, obviously, which made me feel great. And that was a really cool time.
That's awesome. Now, outside of New York and Toronto, have you traveled elsewhere in the world and performed, or was it mostly out of those like hubs in terms of like city locations?
Yeah, it was mainly New York City, Toronto a little bit, and then I did perform in Europe. I performed actually in Moscow, Russia with the Bolshoi Ballet at one point, which I know, and then Florence, Italy too, which I absolutely love too.
Very neat. How was Russia? What was that like?
That was interesting. Beautiful though. Russia is absolutely beautiful. Moscow, the buildings, like the marble, just stunning. It was an interesting experience.
And sorry, I don't even like too much in that one. There's a buddy of mine that was just there though, and he said the same thing. He took some pictures of like their subway and just like how clean it was. Kind of surprising. I didn't know that about that. Maybe naive, but
they're like beautiful. Like they're like stunning buildings. Like you want to take the subway there versus like Toronto, New York. You're like, oh gosh, but so it's just a different way of life there. It's just different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was Italy was the other one?
Yeah, I danced in Florence, Italy with the Scala Danza, and just loved Italy. I think just like the food was amazing, the cobblestone walking to dance every day. The people were really friendly. The fashion there is amazing. Like I could just go on and on. I just loved it there.
Yeah. Limited travel in Europe, as I mentioned, was just in London. I had the same feel there. It was like everyone's like dressed certain ways and like Also, Subway's not as nice as what I've seen in like
Yeah.
famous photos of Russia, or whatever. But yeah, still like a cool experience, bustling around. And you seem to go to hot spots for pizza, though. This is what I'm. You have New York, you have Italy. I mean, I don't know what pizza in Russia is like, but I know Toronto's got an okay scene. I've had pizza there, so
Oh, that's funny.
yeah, it was, I don't know, coincidental. There's on that note, what was your favorite? What was your choice pizza on any of these travels?
That's a tough one. I'll be honest. In Florence, Italy, the pizza was beyond good. But in New York, it was really, really good too. So I have to say both places, yeah, New York and Florence.
Okay, but how about like style of pizza? We're going like pepperoni, peppermash, Hawaiian, something really custom. Like was it like a prosciutto and something, you know?
Yeah, you know what? It was all types. Every single, like
You're
thin, thick, you know, depending on every single topping, like
just rubbing it
just
in.
all
Hey,
over the
all these
map.
varieties. There was unlimited selection of amazing pizza, is what I'm hearing. So that's
Yeah,
good.
yes. And also the dessert too was really good in Florence, Italy, like the gelato and like the little dainties. So that made me quite happy too.
Nice. You're traveling right, obviously, with this work dance experience, and then you're getting to have amazing foods on the journey. Wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
What about what's something that you would maybe tell a younger you or someone who's just starting their career in ballet, looking back on stuff that you've like learned before? What would you give for advice to someone who's just starting on that trajectory?
I would say never lose, you know, that spark within you on why you love to dance and, you know, why you love performing, because there's going to be a lot of people in your ears, you know, saying, you know, lose weight or do this or don't try out here or all these things. It's a really, really hard
Yeah.
profession, and you have to have really thick skin to kind of stay in it too. So I would just, you know, focus on your passion and your love on why you want to do it. Focus on that. And then, you know, there's always going to be
Mhm.
outside noise, and just
Yeah.
try and focus on that, on your, you know, your soul, your inner heart, and why you love, you know, why you love to dance and perform, and try and fuel that versus hearing all the outside noises.
Can we go down a bit of a path here? I've heard this comment before from gymnasts on the
Mm.
female side. I feel like it's an opposite experience to what a lot of guys go through playing sports. It's like get bigger. It's like the
Yeah.
opposite. Like when you're saying that, I'm just like, if you want to, we can chat about it. Wherever you want to take this, I'll leave it in your court because I don't know how it can be a sensitive thing to chat about. But I've had friends I met on the journey talk about uh, professionally training for gymnastics and stuff, and how strict some of that was, which just led to them uh, sneaking foods in that they really weren't supposed to have, basically. So it was like the extra strict parent, and then the kid ends up being a rebel on the other
Yeah.
end of it, basically. So usually it had kind of like a negative outcome, even though someone was maybe trying to control part of that. But was there like, yeah, I don't know. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, I think in terms of eating, and especially when you're performing at such a high level as an athlete, whether you're a hockey player, a football player, a professional ballet dancer, whether you should be eating more and bulking up or losing weight, it can be a bit tricky. And I think you have to fuel yourself. You know, you have to eat. You need the energy to perform and to train. So yeah, that's a sticky one. You
Yeah.
know,
No,
that's a sticky one. Yeah.
sorry. Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I just wanted to throw out there, see why you want to chat about it. Cause we just talked about like fueling in such a great, healthy way, but I could see how outside influence, whether it be like in, the modeling industry, obviously that over the years is, kind of had a bad rep for, influencing folks to be incredibly thin and, unhealthy, frankly. And then it's obviously just a lot of pressure that way. So I definitely good for you for being able to chat about, food in the fueling way. And it sounds like you proceeded through and ignored that noise, like you mentioned. I mean, a good part of, the athletics is the psychology behind it too. Yeah. How much effort do you put into, I know this is kind of a little bit of a thing that you do now, but taking time for you to zen out while performing at this high level? And did you take a lot of like meditative time when you were training back in the day, as it were, which is probably not so long ago?
No, that's a good question. I tried. So for me, what was a good stress reliever was running. I couldn't do too much of
Yeah.
it because it is hard on the ligaments. Plus, I was training and dancing full time. But I
Right.
still manage to still do a few half marathons here and there. I do run a lot more now that I'm on a company full time,
Yeah.
but I always needed like my downtime. So yeah, like meditation, taking yoga classes, things like that really helped me kind of get back to myself. And that was really good for my mental health, my physical health, kind of everything. And
Yeah.
probably complement my career, help me be a better model, person, just like everything. I think in all regards, I think taking care of yourself is really, really important. And whatever that means to you, you know, everybody is different.
Yeah, that's very true. Is there anything like I know you mentioned I think before we even got on here that we were talking about like music and podcast stuff that you listen to when you run. What is your genre within that space to what kind of stuff do you listen to keep your mind off of I guess the run or just kind of get that relaxed flow going?
I have like, you know, my yoga meditative music. I am a yoga teacher as well. So I have many,
Yeah.
many playlists. I, you know, sometimes I need more pump up music. So I have, you know, kind of my rap and pump up stuff like that. So I kind of
Awesome.
have a variety. I don't really listen to country though. I'm really sorry to everybody who loves their country. Um,
That's
but,
okay.
and I don't like screamo music either, but I know some people like the screamo and that pumps them up too.
Yeah. Could be a thing. It's not my genre either, but I do listen to some country. Running's tough. I often find, for me anyways, I don't know if this is relatable or maybe for
Okay.
listening here, but I do stuff on repeat like a psycho. It's just like if I get in the mood, it's
Yeah.
like I will like repeat that song on there. According to Instagram, I have a tism. They're like, if you listen to this, you do too, yeah.
I
It's just
do.
it keeps it level in my mind. I'm like,
Yeah.
whatever pace I'm at, then it's like it keeps kind of things flowing. So I don't know. Works for me. I'm not too worried about it on the other end of whatever's on the gram or in the memes. So
No,
yeah.
I do that sometimes. And then podcasts, I listen to just a lot of motivating ones as well sometimes. So
Cool.
all for that too.
Yeah. What's we talked about like a little bit of teaching. Let's like fast forward to like modern day. How is life? Are you still kind of involved in ballet and modeling and what where are things at more recently?
Yeah, so more recently, things have kind of changed quite a bit, but so I'm back in Winnipeg, which is crazy to say, my hometown, and you know,
Yeah.
but I've been away my whole life, so it's a bit of a culture shock, a bit of an adjustment.
Mhm.
A lot more slow pace here. It's very slow here.
Yeah.
But I'm teaching yoga and barre classes, which I absolutely love. I'm teaching at Altea Active,
Nice.
so I'm teaching there. I'm working at Payworks as well, so I'm on the sales team selling payroll as well. And I still
Cool.
can perform. I still, want to perform here and there. It just won't be a full-time thing anymore. And even with the modeling as well and commercial work. So if I get things here and there, I may pick it up depending, but my focus is more now on Payworks and teaching at Altea Active, which I absolutely love.
Awesome. Now, if someone's looking to get it, like you were describing this today ahead of the episode, and I've never done a bar class before, but and it's and do you do bar and yoga? Like, is it because I've done hot yoga, but we didn't actually get into the specifics of this. But what's the major difference between the two classes?
So for yoga, there's like different varieties of yoga we can do, right? So we have the hatha, vinyasa, deep stretch, yin. So I teach all of those at Altea too. And then the bark, so that's more of like a meditative state at times, more of a flow, lots of stretching, holding the poses. You're not using light weights or anything like that. But with the bar class, it's kind of a mix of like ballet, Pilates, and yoga, but we use the light weights as well, lots of planks and push-ups and lifting the leg behind the head and just like, lots of,
Is it
I'm just,
legit? Leg behind the head?
well, yeah, I'm trying to teach my students to do that, but I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's okay. I mean, like I half attempted hot yoga. Like when I was in there, I got good enough for a couple poses, but outside of that, I was mostly going in there for the stretch and the sweat.
that's,
I don't think I could see myself get with the leg over head thing. Just
no,
it would
no,
be, yeah,
no, no. And then also for bar too, I would say like I bring, a lot of what I learned with being a professional ballet dancer, and I spent a lot of time at the bar. So a lot of, balancing on one leg and aerobics and some dancing in there. So kind of a mix of Pilates and yoga and ballet. So It's a tough class though. A lot of men are a bit worried to take my class because it can be a little difficult.
Yeah, that's where our discussion went the other day on this topic. I was like, I don't know, this seems a bit intimidating. Definitely down to try something new and be humbled in it, but it certainly does seem like probably not a strength of mine initially. But I mean, more
Right.
reps you get in, perhaps down the road, could be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems very interesting.
Well, you know where to find me.
Yes. Yes, we do. What's been I guess like what's you're coming out or like looking down the road here, as you mentioned, like kind of open to some other opportunities. And do you see yourself always being involved in the ballet scene? It seems like it's kind of like deep rooted in you and still participating. Are you going to get into like teaching that side of things? I guess you're kind of teaching in some ways with the bar classes, but do you see that being something down the road?
I see myself always doing something creative and athletic. So whether, yeah, that's continuing to teach yoga and bar, potentially ballet classes. I mean, I've thought about, potentially opening maybe my own studio one day or being a private teacher and teaching, young
Okay.
talent. So that could happen.
Yeah.
You never know.
Very awesome.
Yeah.
I'll just throw this out there. This is a very like open style podcast here. Anything else that you want to cover on your end? I feel like I was writing some notes down here and just like things I gotta ask about in general after on here. But is there anything else that you want to cover on your end?
No, I think I'm good. That was good.
No, this is just how sometimes we roll with this thing near the end here. I'll just throw it there. On the hair product side of things, though, let's cover this one. I wrote Tresemme down. What were the products that you had worked with? It's just like I always think of those commercials or whatever from. They did a really good job of marketing over the years in my mind. Obviously, it was the first one that sticks in. I don't even know if that's still a company. I don't even know how to spell it. Actually, I just wrote like my version of how I would spell it because I'm kind of dyslexic. But yeah, is that? I think that's it. Yeah.
I think it's still a brand. No.
Okay.
Oh goodness, I've worked with so many now. I'm trying to think. Oh goodness, not like super well known brands, but more of some brands in the Bollywood industry and just some local companies in Toronto and New York. I modeled for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to chat afterwards. Maybe get some product recommendations.
Oh, for sure.
I'm limited. Yeah, on what's going on out there. So, yeah, Alex, this has been great. Thank you for making time to be on the podcast today, and excited to chat in the future. It seems like you're going to continue to have a wicked story as we go. So, yeah, this has been great connecting and great having you on today.
Thank you, Stephen.